The trend is one way, and it's bad. Because you can look at it in a couple of different ways. One, the raw scores are just low, right? I mean, I think that we would have to expect as a kind of freewheeling democracy that not everyone's going to get an A on our exam, right? People are busy, people do other things, people have different priorities. But what we would expect is probably roughly, a bell curve of maybe a B minus or a C plus, 70, high 70s, low 80s. That would be what we would expect if people were doing well. If the average American is 48% and college graduates are like 60%, then that trend tells us in the raw score that they're pretty ignorant in terms of civics. But in terms of what the value added that you get from college, that's also poor. So what we did, we looked at what other things could you do to educate yourself other than going to school. How much do you read? How much do you spend time watching television? How much time do you spend discussing current events and participating in civic life? We actually found when you did the regressions there and held everything else constant, that kind of self-education and civic awareness actually added more to your civic knowledge, storehouse of civic knowledge, than an expensive college education. So I think what that tells you is people need to be more informed consumers about what they're getting from a college degree. And if they're not getting it well, we actually have some resources at ISI that can help parents and taxpayers say, here's some universities, here's some colleges. They might not do a great job if you don't know what you're buying, but here are the professors that we think are worthy. Here are the courses we think are worthy of taking. Most everybody, if they're a wise consumer, can actually navigate those rocky shoals. The shame of it all is that we're expecting 18 and 19-year-old kids to make those decisions as opposed to an institution whose job it's supposed to be to prepare kids for life as an engaged citizen. Folks like me have a hard time cracking through academia because it's a closed shop. And so what happens is the left has captured academia. They control who gets hired and gets fired. And so it's not that you are somehow not liberal and then you get to the college and you become liberal. It's that you are liberal from the get-go and you just get more liberal and more progressive. And some of it gets into groupthink. And so I actually think there's a danger for conservatives to try to emulate that model, just to say, well, we'll just get a bunch of conservatives and have conservative universities. Well, that's not really the purpose of free and fair inquiry. I mean, we're supposed to, as philosophers, lovers of knowledge, supposed to go where the knowledge takes us, where the truth takes us, regardless of, that's the whole purpose of tenure, regardless of maybe the consequences of that pursuit of truth. And so we want intellectual pluralism at ISI, and I think that part of the conclusion of these reports is that there isn't intellectual pluralism, and so we would ask maybe people who run these universities and the people that donate money to them and pay for them would expect maybe to maybe look into the hiring process in these faculties. Why is it that the latest surveys show, I think it's the North American study of social science and humanities faculty, that it's roughly 10 to 1 or 12 to 1 in terms of how they identify themselves politically, liberal to conservative, Republican to Democrat. The easiest way, I guess, is to go to ISI.org, Intercollegiate Studies Institute, ISI.org, and on that you can go to two kind of links. One is American Civic Literacy. That's where you can get all the information on our past studies. You can take the test yourself online, see how well you do, see how well you shape up. And then if you're interested in saying, all right, I want to send my kid to college, or I'm a college student, I'm interested in majoring in a particular discipline, but I'm not sure what I need to be reading and what I need to look at. We have what's called the College Guide, collegeguide.org, where that's kind of a tool for parents and taxpayers to say, okay, even at a place like Harvard, of course you're going to get a good education, but it's going to be slanted. But maybe there's professors at Harvard that play it straight, and there are. You can get a good college education anywhere you go, the shame of it is it's up to you to find it as opposed to the college producing it. And so we provide that in the college guide, and then we have student guides to the disciplines, which basically I call them owner's manuals for the discipline. So if you're looking to major in history, what are the main questions that you should be seeking to answer by studying that particular discipline? We find students have found these extremely useful to kind of direct their selection of courses in a particular, and of course just to decide on their own what they want to major in. So I think those are some resources, and but education is a continual process, and what we find is that as you mature in age, you shouldn't think that the only time you're going to educate yourself is at these 4 years in college or whenever it is. You can educate yourself by reading a good newspaper. You can educate yourself by going to a good bookstore and reading classic history and current history. And you'd be surprised how just the process of reading a book, as opposed to going to all these different kinds of websites and things like that, that also is education too.